welcome back to the GamerTime podcast. This is episode number 7, and I am Nevi, and this week I'm joined by Gav. Say hello.
Hello, I've returned. Not been on for a while.
No, you haven't. And George.
Good evening, or morning, whenever you're listening to this. Night.
It's definitely evening for us.
Afternoon.
It's like
midday.
Thursday is often the latest I stay up, because I get up at like 4:30 most days at the moment.
Horrifying.
Yeah, I've turned into some sort of like old man or something. I've got to the point where I'm like, I'm just grumpy during the day, and then I go to bed early and I get up really early. I'm turning into an old man.
Yeah, I'm the same. Wait, yeah, like waking up at 5:45. It's just like, God, 10, so late.
Oh man, I'm glad I'm not like you guys.
You're like, those damn kids outside making noise. Grandpa needs his sleep.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I'll be going to bed, and then I have friends that come online at like 10:30. It's like, hey, let's play something. I'm like, no, don't you know what time it is?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. No, it's like, send me a message. I'm like asleep for like 3 hours, and like, fancy a game of Civ? And I was like, first of all, you sent me that at 11 o'clock. We were never going to finish that game. And secondly, I was asleep for like 3 hours before that. Never going to happen. Anyway, should we talk about some games rather than our strange sleeping patterns?
No, I think we should change format. This should be a sleep therapy podcast.
Yeah, I agree actually. Something I have always just felt a deep need to talk about.
Okay, so what side do you guys sleep on then? Left, right, or centre? Or like on your faces?
I tend to start off sleeping on my back, though that's only something I've done for like in like recent years. I used to be a side sleeper, then sort of a couple of years ago I started sleeping on my back, but I usually start on my back and then end up actually falling asleep properly, maybe on the front, I think.
There you go, guys. That was insight.
There we go. Now we know everything about you.
Yeah. For me, I always sleep on my left-hand side. Inexplicable.
I think I tend to sleep on my right, but it's not something I've paid any attention to be honest.
Right. Let's definitely talk about some games now. We're like
All right.
a few minutes in, and we've not even mentioned a game. We've just talked about sleep.
Okay.
Yeah. The sleep podcast is sidelined for another week. Right, this week we're going to talk about Dreadnought, because George's been playing the beta, and then we're going to do some Time Commanders, because it was out recently on TV, and then we're going to talk about some Warhammer, and then if we've got time we can chat about the Vita, because it's become my new favourite console. Do you want to lead us off, George, with Dreadnought?
Yeah, so I got a key that got me into the beta start of the week. I haven't played a huge amount. I think I've played maybe 3-4 multiplayer games and the tutorial. And basically what the game, so the game Dreadnought, it's on PC, and basically it's a sort of big space combat game, where you're controlling these huge sort of space battleships and space frigates and space cruisers. I mean, just take regular modern day warships and put space in front of them, and you have the kind of fleet. And yeah, you poodle around shooting people.
Excellent.
And I mean that's mostly it, and it's sort of trying to recreate those, I guess, the sort of the epic space combat you see in Star Wars and Star Trek and those
So
other
is it
things
like
set in space that involve war.
The other ones with like stars in them, like Battlestar Galactica. There you go.
That's another good one.
Stargate.
Stargate, yeah. I mean, all the ones where they have large spaceships just doing naval-style combat, they just kind of put up alongside each other and shoot big guns at each other. And it's trying to, and I remember seeing the trailers, and it looks quite cool. Like they have quite a diverse classes of ships. So you have these really sort of tiny, nimble frigates, and then sort of medium-sized destroyers, which are kind of the jack of all trades, medium, bland sort of ships, and then you have big the dreadnoughts, and then you have like support ships, which is just kind of essentially medic ships that can float around and heal people.
Heal ships.
Yeah, and so it's quite exciting because
we plaster.
Yeah. Big space blasters.
Massive. Yeah, big bandage just comes out on 2 arms.
Yeah, and so you get to control these, like essentially one huge ship. And that's quite exciting because it's not. I guess there's Eve is the big space sim, but there's not that many games that really offer kind of grand scale epic space fleet engagements.
So you control one ship at a time.
One ship directly,
Okay.
and it's so it's multiplayer, and it's a standard game. I think the currently available game modes are deathmatch, where you only have one life, and then I think a free for all mode.
Okay. What sort of scale are we talking?
So
like
that's the thing. These ships are huge. So I think sort of Star Destroyers, the Enterprise.
Right. Okay. So not like freelancer sort of size, where you're more like a.
No. So you're kind of like big, kind of battleship,
big and bulky
size things. And the ships look a bit like the sort of the ships that you get in Halo. Like they're not particularly exciting looking.
They're like boxy Federation.
They're kind of just like
ships,
long, bobbly tubes that have guns poking out. Like they're not. Like there's no like sort of quirky design. Like you're not like, oh, that's a, like the Enterprise is quite a funky looking ship.
Yeah. See what I've got in my head after you saying that is the end of a roller kitchen roll with like some guns attached to it.
Yeah. I mean.
Am I close?
Yeah. I mean, then I'd say they're quite like bulbous and so like the Destroyer is kind of squashed, but it's sort of squashed oval with sort of big gun emplacements on it.
Right. Okay.
But it's just been a bit disappointing, really, because it's meant to convey these huge, epic engagements that have, like lasers flying, and you imagine, your kind of crew screaming at you as different bits of the ship go down. But it's all kind of been condensed in not a great way. And so it's 8v8, but then I think I've only played it on the one map. I don't know if it's the only map in the beta. There might be more, but it's always the one I've been put into, and it just feels really small. Like there's no sense of like scale. Like it doesn't feel particularly epic, because the one map is actually on a planet rather than being a sort of space engagement.
Okay, that seems to sort of defeat the object of what the game seems to be about.
Yeah, and so the way you control controlling your ship's pretty simple. So you just move with wires. There's just forwards, backwards, and then A and D turn you left and right. And essentially you ascend and descend with shift and spacebar. So you don't.
Okay.
So literally, if you don't move at all and just hold spacebar, the ship just rises up.
Okay. You don't like switch to different subsections.
So you're not really like flying where you kind of you're kind of pitching up and down. It's just kind of very X and Y axis control, just sort of
right. So you don't need to like switch to like weapon systems, and that switches you over to like a different department of the ship or some department.
Yeah, and so basically you just steer around the map, and you have and you might be a kind of slow-ish destroyer, or you might be a much faster small frigate, and there's an artillery ship where you are just a really long gun, essentially. Like your ship is just essentially a rail gun with an engine stuck on the back. And you just kind of, and it's really boring, like how to go, and you just sit, essentially hold spacebar, float to the top of the map, and just sit there. And then, if people come and try and get you, you just run away. But the problem is the map feels really small, and so it feels really cluttered.
Right.
And so almost, you don't really get this kind of sense of epic struggle. It's just kind of, I drove round a corner, and I ran into 3 ships, and I died in about 4 seconds. And so it almost has that kind of, and because it's quite fast paced, it almost has that almost sort of first person shootery feel where your life is kind of inconsequential. Like it doesn't really feel like you don't have that kind of. You never really get a sense that there's a captain standing at his command as, big red lights are flashing and it's like, the guns are down! More power to the engines! Raise the ship! You never really get that. It's just a bit...
You're a floating box.
You're just kind of floating box with guns on it. Because there's no... I mean, I guess it is the beta, but there's no compartmentalized damage. You just have a health bar.
Oh, that seems
which
like
is slightly
a shame as well, then. Yeah.
What's the, how does it... Do you have respawns, or is it one of those games where you die once and then you're out until the next round?
So, I think so there's team deathmatch where you just have respawns and it's just a kill ticker, and then there's essentially the same, but you only have 1 life. And I haven't tried that, and perhaps that might add a bit more tension to it. But because it's quite rapid, you don't really get a sense of fleet engagement either, because you might run around a corner and you get outnumbered and you're immediately killed, and so you never really get this sort of clash of big spaceships. You just kind of get it's kind of feels like it doesn't ever feel that exciting. And there's a little bit of that command sense where you have energy and you can direct it to shields, engines, or weapons,
right?
And it's an incredibly simple system and doesn't feel that satisfying.
That's a shame. It sounds a bit like it's trying to be like a dogfighting game with massive ships.
Yeah, it does. It does feel a lot more as though it's like a sort of dogfighting game, almost like similar things, sort of like War Thunder, where you each have a small plane.
Yeah.
But it's a giant ship, and there's a sort of disconnect between the scale and the kind of pacing and size of the map. Because the maps feel small, so you're just constantly... It's very compressed.
Just running at a folk.
Yeah.
Well, giant space boats. Just fucking each other up and then dying and then respawning and...
Yeah, it doesn't...
Getting stuck
it doesn't feel like much of this... there's no sort of grand strategy. And perhaps... maybe if you kind of reduce the player count and you had, teams coordinating, you might, but a lot of it is just... You kind of spawn in, run forward, shoot, blow up.
It sounds like the kind of thing where what interests me about games like Eve is that there's a lot of coordination going on in the big scale battles, and they're not just I mean, obviously, I say it interests me to hear about Eve. I wouldn't want to play it, but as far as
I can tell, Eve is just a job. You have to spend 27 hours a day playing Eve.
Yeah, but then this just sounds a bit like a bit like a first-person shooter. Or what it actually sounds to me is something that should be enjoyable, but is actually really boring. So it sounds a bit to me like a worse version of World of Tanks with spaceships. Yeah. And I fucking hate World of Tanks.
It is very like that. I mean, I've played War Thunder, the tank version, which is kind of very, very similar, and it is very like that. You don't get. Just a bit disappointing.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's nailed the scale very well, because you'd imagine because they're big ships, it'd all be really slow.
Yeah, and it is kind of slow, and so that's the problem. So you don't really get a huge amount of joy out of the movement, because everything's just a bit sluggish, and there's nothing particularly unique about it. It is just forwards, backwards, turning, and then kind of floating up and down.
Yeah, because when you watch stuff that has the big space boat conflicts, you'll see as they turn and try and charge a weapon, another ship will have moved a bit. Because it takes that time, they're always just looking at their watches sometimes, waiting for the boat to move round.
Yeah, so
that it can fire.
Because I played Battlefield Gothic this year, which is great fun, and it's the same thing. It's just this kind of space naval combat, but that's a real-time strategy.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's just a sort of concept that is particularly difficult to do from a real time not sort of third person perspective.
Yeah, because it doesn't sound like the physics engine's like particularly realistic either. Like the way it's like
No, it's very arcadey.
doing it, especially because like it seems weird that they'd put it on a planet as like the beta.
Yeah.
Because like when you think of a space conflict, you don't think of it being on a planet. So that immediately makes you a bit confused as to what's actually going on.
Slightly unusual, yeah.
I think it's
What's
part
like-
of it. I think is because you're almost fragile if you kind of like if you run into two ships, like you go kind of go pop very quickly. So they've added some because they've set it on the planet. Then they have these kind of canyons and things that essentially like cover and places to hide.
It sounds quite weird to me, the idea of them being really like fragile, because when you imagine like big spaceship combat, do you expect them to have like it to be like quite meaty?
Yeah.
You know, they'd be able to take a good few hits, and there'd be like quite a protracted engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even when they take hits, they like seal off like areas and things so that it doesn't quite fall apart as quickly as it should. Like that would be more interesting to me, I think.
Yeah.
That they would be more sort of I say realistic, but like that sort of realistic science fiction, I suppose, then, rather than it seeming to try and go for sort of guns blazing. And
You almost get it when you end up in a sort of one-on-one situation, but it's just a bit dull. Because essentially, like sometimes you'll come up on a ship and you kind of just circle each other, and you have one or two sort of like cool down abilities where it's like fire sort of missiles or something like a sort of special attack and then on cooldown, and it's kind of in a one-on-one you just kind of shoot at each other. And on the Dreadnought you're this huge ship with these giant sort of laser cannons, but they feel inconsequential. It's just like, I'm chipping down his health and he's chipping down my health. But because the maps are so small, you very rarely get these kind of one-on-one engagements. And so very more often than not, it's I'll just stick my head out around this canyon. Oh god, there's 3 of them and I'm dead.
there was an old-ish sort of space sim where you played as like a frigate, and it felt like it controlled like it sort of would if it was real. I'm trying to remember what the name was. I got it off GOG like a couple of years ago. I can't remember what the name is. If I remember it, I'll put it in the description of the podcast, because it sort of it more realistically sort of simulated each part of the ship. So you'd have like in space you'd turn, but you might turn too far because it assumed the perpetual motion was going on. So if you didn't backtrack as you were turning, then you just spin. And similarly with when there was bits when you're on planets, because it's heavy, it was just continuously sinking into the planet.
Yeah.
Because it's massive. So unless you pitched upwards often, it would you'd just end up scraping along the surface. And there were some other bits of it like that. And it I know on that you would switch between different areas. Like you could switch to engineering and then tweak the things there, or switch to your gunner's ports and do stuff there, or the main helm where you'd actually control it from.
Have you guys played Guns of Icarus? Because I just remembered that that's a game that does the same sort of essence very well.
I haven't, but I have always meant to. I look at it and go, that looks good. I feel like I find someone to play it with me.
Yeah, so Guns of Icarus, I guess people that don't know, it's the same sort of thing. But it's sort of steampunk, and you control these sort of big airships that are sort of these big Zeppelin style balloons, but then they have actual ships strung underneath, and and it's a team game, so one person is the pilot of the ship, and then everyone else is like the crew, and I think it's teams of 4, I think. And you have people that run around and can choose to be engineers, and they just go and hit things with spanners. And then you have I mean it's literally the way you repair stuff is the animation is just you smacking the thing with a hammer. And then there are gunners who can control the different sort of hard points on the ship, and like the controls are the same. Like you steer with WAS, and you essentially raise up and down because you're a balloon.
See, yeah, I always look at it and think that looks really interesting. Talking of things actually where you just whack stuff in Civ 6, the builder just gets a massive hammer. He's like, "You're building yourself a stable, hit it with a hammer.
floor.
You're building a mine, hit it with a hammer. You want that? Do you want a farm done? Hammer."
Yeah, like there's a little thing in Guns of Icarus where it's like you can customize your loadout a little bit. So you have like a spanner, which you can hit stuff with, and that fixes it. And then there's a buff hammer. And so if you're an engineer, you can run up to a gun and just hit it with this large rubber mallet, and then that for a short period of time like increases the gun's damage. Or like if it's the engine, you just smack the engine with a rubber hammer and it performs a little bit better for a short while. But yeah, so Guns of Icarus is it's great though when you have a team, because even when you're doing badly, like you get that sense of everything going wrong. Like you'll hear your engineer being like, "I can't fix everything. Everything's on fire." And like, and you know, your balloon will burst and you'll start losing height, and it feels like it should, rather than just, "Oh no,
But
yeah,
I think that's interesting because it's like, you know, it's a team game rather than, you know, you're just one boat by itself. Like, you know, there's more of a sense of it being like a manned object rather than just this thing that just you kind of float about yourself.
Yeah, like you could easily be a single man craft. Like you don't get the sense that it's a big ship.
Yeah. Maybe it would be better then if it did have like more team strategy. Like I don't know if it was more.
Yeah. Well,
like capture an objective or collect a
objectives
thing.
would help. And also Guns of Icarus, they like I think the largest game mode is 3v3, but a lot of them is just 2v2, and so there's a lot of slightly more strategy to it, because you never like you're sort of picking your engagements. You don't want to try and take on the whole of the other team yourself, so you're kind of maneuvering to run away and rejoin your teammate if they get destroyed and stuff like that.
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah, Guns of Icarus. It always looks exciting. I've seen videos and it just looks.
It's very hard though. Like
action-packed.
I think me and the friends that I played with, we've killed a ship. We've killed a ship. That is our success. We've played quite a bit, and we've managed to kill a ship.
One ship.
I remember playing with randoms during the free weekend, and it was a bit of a challenge, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just
because you basically have to take their shields down, and then once you've got the shields down, you can start doing damage to the hull. But it's a very like there's quite a high learning curve to it, and so you've got to be good.
Right.
And as a result, we were always striving, and we'd often be winning games purely by not dying, and essentially our other and doing damage, but it would always be our teammate that would get the kill. So like our our wing ship.
Right. AI.
No. So like the other team of 4.
Oh,
in, like the other ship on your team.
I'm with you. Sorry. So speaking of strategy, kind of speaking of strategy, do you want to tell us about Time Commanders? Check out that segment.
Yeah, so that returned to British TV. I think it went off the air in 2006. But essentially, people play the Total War series live on air. But now it's hosted by Greg Wallace.
Yeah, of MasterChef.
I think last time it was Richard Hammond, and now it's Greg Wallace.
Yeah.
Very, very comparable people, I think.
Do you want to tell us a bit about what they did and who they were and what battles they did?
Yeah, so like this week it was they got 2 teams. There were 3 wrestlers from Glasgow and 3 posh lads from London.
What a matchup!
Yeah, they'd really picked the team, so they're like
cultural scores to settle there.
These 3 sort of posh 20-somethings in sort of blue suit trousers and shirts, and then these 3 wrestlers from Glasgow in I think they've got like team t-shirts, so in their sort of like purple team t-shirts.
I've got to find out who it was. It wasn't Grado, was it? Because he's omnipresent.
I don't know. They didn't say what scale of wrestling they were, whether they were just amateur or.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it was quite funny, and so each team got to have a go at the game because I don't think either team had ever played it before. It was a real thing. That the wrestlers were sort of showed up and were sort of we're hard, and then they were like, "Hello, we like to play board games and we like history." And this posh, so they each got to have a go, where one person is the team captain, who kind of is in charge of commanding everything, and then the other two are captains, who essentially stand next to the guy actually playing Total War and kind of relay the orders.
Right. Okay. So it's not relying on their technical skill at the game.
No, they don't need to actually physically control the games. They that
would be hard.
The general stands at this kind of big table, I guess, has a tactical view of the map.
Does he get a hat?
No, it's really disappointing. They don't get any. They don't get any hats.
That's a shame.
And then they're standing in front of a giant screen that is showing the battle. And then kind of in the shadows you can see a guy playing Total War with a headset on, with one of the captains kind of standing at his shoulder pointing at what he wants to do.
The captive nerd.
Yeah. It must be so frustrating because they're probably really good at the game, but the fact that but they're having to obey the orders of these people that have absolutely no idea what they're doing.
Mate, do you even know he's got bad charge defense? Don't put him there.
Literally, it was that. And so each one got to play one really tiny skirmish against an AI. And so they were using Rome 2 Total War. And so one team were the Romans, who were the posh guys from London, and then the wrestlers were the Carthaginians. And they each got to do a skirmish, and then they had a sort of big battle, which was the kind of final half hour of the show.
All right.
And then they had some historical experts to tell us about the weapons that were being used, who were so keen, and they were essentially a parody of themselves. This is they would be all these little intercut segments, and they'd be like, today we're looking at the Roman pilum, and it's I don't know, it's really they're just so it's difficult to describe. They were hilarious, and then they'll kind of demonstrate it. So they got this will be our barbarian shield. Danny here, if you run along with the shield, you'll simulate a barbarian shield wall. I'm going to throw the Roman pilum, the kind of this javelin that they had, and he throws it and it goes through the shield. And then sort of 5 of them pile in around the shield to kind of give their in-depth analysis. And so this spear is punched straight through the shield and is sort of halfway embedded. There's a good sort of 2 feet of spear sticking out the back of the shield. And they're all giving this what they think, I guess, is in-depth analysis. And then so halfway through goes one of them. And as you can see, it's punched right the way through the shield. I'm like, yes.
like a convention of chirpy English, not chirpy fucking history teachers, who've all unionized.
And the main guy is kind of in his sort of white chinos and blue shirt with a ponytail. And so they're running around in this sort of horse yard. And the kind of where you have that kind of, it's like the sandy horse area. I can't remember what you call them.
Yeah.
And they test the weapons. But then they have the same thing with the commentators, who I think are actual historians to some extent, commentating on what's going wrong. And then you have Greg Wallace, who's actually standing with the contestants, essentially screaming in their ear about how they're doing. And I felt a little bit bad because it seemed like the posh guys seemed like they were set up to lose their skirmish. Just a tiny bit, because you get in Rome, you get if you zoom all the way out, you get a little tactical view where it shows you the kind of unit blocks, and they showed that right at the start of theirs, and I think they were outnumbered 2-1, and set up to walk into an ambush. I was like, seems a little unfair, but it was quite funny. So they walk in, and essentially walk straight into the ambush, and then Greg Wallace is just dancing around between them going, "You're mullered! You're absolutely mullered!" And then and then an elephant shows up. He's like, that elephant's making a motorway through your men, and just going, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, calm down, Greg. Calm down.
He has to rein himself in for Master Chef. This is his release.
He just absolutely jumps around. Yeah. And then it comes down to this big final battle where they play directly against each other, and each team is allowed one timeout, where you can kind of call a pause to the whole thing, and then all the experts crowd round and advise them on what they should be doing.
Okay.
And yeah, essentially the poor the wrestlers just got absolutely destroyed.
That's
it's so funny. They both lined up, and they both did the classic Total War player thing of fighting defensively. So you just set up your men in a nice defensive line and just sit there.
I'll psych him out, boys.
They both did that, and they were just like, right, we're gonna wait here. Let them come and attack us.
The AI is always dumb enough, but real humans.
So both of them did it, and then the guys from London, who were the Romans, had a slight cavalry advantage. So basically, put all their cavalry on one side, wiped out the opposing cavalry, and then kind of marched in. And the Carthaginians, who had elephants, ended up wasting them just by charging them straight at the enemy, but without any support. So the elephants arrived, hit the Romans, and then just got surrounded and killed.
There were just elephants on their own, really.
Yeah,
just crying there.
But it was quite funny. So they were just, as someone that really enjoys the Total War, there's so many gaffes where it was just like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?"
Just shout at them, dumb bastards.
Yeah, it was quite funny. But yeah, it's an incredibly cringy, overproduced, it's awkward Total War Let's Play, but it's hilarious.
That sounds incredible. It also sounds kind of infuriating.
It was a little bit, but they're not very good with the camera work at showing actually the battle itself, because they're constantly cutting.
Yeah.
Which slightly relieved things, because it meant I couldn't see the big errors. There's one moment where it cuts, and there's just this unit of Carthaginian slingers who are terrible in melee, these light infantry, just kind of these lads in tunics, and there's just this large unit of Roman heavy cavalry just standing kind of 50 meters away, who just just watching them. It's like, what are you doing? Charge them down, and they're gone.
Oh dear! I must watch it. I'll have to watch it tomorrow. It sounds great.
Yeah, so it's on iPlayer. I think it's
nice.
Mondays at 9 on BBC4, and it must shock BBC4 viewers, because BBC4 is it's all classical music documentaries, and recently they've been having slow television. So I think one is just a train journey on.
Yeah, they do that.
And then there was a bus ride where it was 2 hours of bus tour. So they put a camera on a bus, and it just went around the countryside for 2 hours.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, there's a couple of the Nordic ones like that on Netflix. It's 7 hours of watching some old ladies knit, and a 8-hour train journey that is mostly tunnels through Norway.
I remember I once fell into a weird hole on the internet, right? And I ended up spending a lot of time actually over the course of a couple of days watching there were live streams of train stations. And I ended up spending hours just watching this live stream of a Japanese train station, because their public transport is on point.
Oh yeah, it is.
They know how to do it, so it's just everything was arriving on time, and you could see all the passengers filing in and going in. The announcer had a very calming voice.
Did it make you want to play Train Simulator afterwards?
No, I didn't.
Didn't go that far.
Nothing can make me want to play Train Simulator. But yeah, I can totally imagine Channel 4, oh not Channel 4, BBC 4 viewers just being suddenly horrified. Just they're sitting there with their fucking midday sherries, and suddenly there's the guy off MasterChef screaming at a bunch of Ouija wrestlers that they've fucked up with their elephants.
Yeah.
Like,
Just Greg
what's
Wallace.
going
The
on?
elephants are coming. The elephants are coming. I mean, perhaps they would really enjoy like someone just doing a very diligent let's play of Train Simulator.
yeah.
They might do.
Just one of those Let's Players that gets like 5 views every video, but you know he's going to upload at the same time every single day of the week.
If you're listening, BBC4 channel execs, that's my idea, and I am open to offers if you would like to take it.
Do all the Sims, like the trucker ones and stuff, because they're all like same sort of thing.
Yeah. And this week on BBC4,
Yeah.
we're driving from Antwerp to Berlin in Truck Simulator.
You remember they recently released that thing in, like, what was it, the American Truck Simulator that like doubles the scale of the map, so you can get some good
go.
mileage out of that.
Yeah.
Just hours and hours. And I mean, I've done it. But I
I've
don't know
never
if
played any of those.
Oh, you're missing out. You can pick your own radio channel and you just drive about and you feel like your life force slipping away, but at the same time it's pleasant.
Pleasant life force slipping away.
Yeah, like it's like knowing
Have you
like you're gonna die slowly, but you enjoy it.
Have you seen
Right, it's like-
Soylent Green? Is it called Soylent Green? The
The
film
film.
where the euthanasia clinics in that where you go and sit in a bed and then like sort of dim colours play and you get to watch nature at these euthanasia clinics, but instead it's just and now a truck simulator let's play.
You just get sat down with Truck Simulator and they put in an IV of cyanide and eventually it kills you, but you're perfectly
Yeah,
happy.
it turns out they didn't even need the cyanide. Truck simulator was enough. It just lulls people off to the other side.
No, you just like you realize a few days later you've spent like 4 continuous days playing Truck Simulator. You're on the brink of exhaustion. You've not eaten, and you just lean down. You arrive, do a perfect like I don't know, like 3-point turn maybe. Reverse your load into the truck, and you release it from the back of your truck, kind of metaphorically, and die.
Anyway, moving on from euthanasia.
Well, I
Should
mean,
we talk
talking
about,
of public transport, you've been playing something that's rather nifty for those on the go. The PS Vita.
Yeah, I have. I recently invested in a Vita, partly because we got sent a code for a game for it and nobody else had one, so I could justify it to myself to get a PS
How much
Vita.
did it cost you?
£75 with like 6 games and a memory card, because the Vita is stupid. It doesn't have any internal storage for you to download games.
That is
Or
why I haven't bought one.
install any games. It's just, yeah.
I considered buying one when it like a while ago, and I was like, how much is a decent memory card? You know, like maybe 32 gigs. And I looked, and it was like,
They're
you know,
expensive.
had
yeah.
to sell my kidney, and I was just like,
They
I'll buy a 3DS.
They were like retailing for like half the price that I paid for that Vita. I got it on eBay, so I was just like stalking all the people selling them. So yeah, that's where I'd recommend picking one up.
Right.
But other than that, I love it. It's brilliant. I've had PS Plus for goodness knows how long now. So every month, even though I didn't have a Vita until about a month ago, I'd always just be like, yeah, sure, free games. Someday, you never know, a Vita might land on my lap and I'll get to play some of these games. Years later, that bounty has played off. I've got like at least 50 games on there to play.
Is that all the games that were
just-
ever released for the Vita?
Not quite, I don't think.
There's
A lot
two
of them
there's two or
are
three
puzzle
that still elude
platformers. yeah. So
Well, you have
the only game I've actually bought is Persona 4, and the rest of them I'm just surfing on the laurels at the moment. It's just free games,
nice,
and then
nice.
when I get through enough of them, I can sink the rest of my life into Persona 4.
You see, my thought with the PS Vita, right, is the problem with its appeal in Western markets is basically that it doesn't appeal to any, like the catalog is good. It's got good games, but it doesn't appeal to anyone who doesn't like really Japanese games. Like there's no like middle, like Nintendo's games. Like you get a Mario game, that's like it's quite universal, but
Yeah.
the Vita has a lot of stuff that if you're like a person who's not into anime designs and stuff like that, you might not get anything out of it.
It does have a lot of Japanese games. That is true.
Like vastly,
yeah,
very Japanese ones.
It does, but one of the benefits of it is it has a massive catalogue of PlayStation 1 games.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So if you at any point owned a PlayStation 1 and enjoyed things like Spyro and Ape Escape, then you're in luck because they're all on it and they're like a couple of £1 each. So man, I loved Ape Escape back in the day. So yeah, and it's like all the classic Final Fantasies are on there, and it has all the PSP games. So again, if you ever had a PSP and wanted to play a PSP game, you could just like pap it on and name other PSP games that are not really Japanese.
God of War. There were a couple of God of War exclusive PSP.
There you go.
games.
Yep.
There you go.
God of War games.
They were,
It's like I really struggled then.
They weren't bad.
You like-
Pretty decent.
You like the game about that big angry bastard? Get it.
Yeah, but there's an interesting catalogue, and there's a lot of like indie puzzle platformer games which I'm slowly working my way through. So I finished Nihilumbra recently, and that's how you pronounce it. It's like Annihilation and Umbra put together. And I'm playing the Swapper at the moment, and I've got Guacamelee downloaded, and I've got Lumo as well. So there's loads of really good. If you like puzzle platformers, there's plenty of them on the Vita. And if you've ever had a PlayStation Plus subscription, you've probably got at least a handful of good games. I've got Ratchet and Clank and the Jak and Daxter trilogy, which is going to have me set for a while just from those two. Anyway, you were going to say something before
I feel like puzzle platformers work quite well on handhelds because they can be kind of handled in chunks.
Yeah, I know they can. Like the Swapper at the moment, I like maybe do a level before bed, or like while I'm like waiting for the kettle to boil, I'll just do a quick puzzle. Or the same when I was doing Nihilumbra and stuff like that. So they nail like so well on a handheld.
The one thing I'd say about the Swapper though is it does. I think it's a game that looks amazing on a massive screen though, just because it's a game that has its graphic style like the
it is beautiful. Yeah, I imagine it does look lovely on a big screen. I mean, it looks nice on a handheld, and I like playing it in the dark. I think I can get the most out of it then.
Like under the covers.
You joke, but yeah. I quite like the touchscreen on the Vita as well.
Do a lot of games make use of it?
A couple. I've got like Swapper does, but I've never really used it because it's not as accurate as using an analog stick because I have chunky fingers.
Because there's a touchscreen on the back, isn't there? It's like it's a dual.
There are two on the back that are a bit like the the touchpads on a laptop. They're sort of tracers. They feel a bit like that, but the actual front screen is an entire touchscreen, like on your phone, and works in a similar way. Like you can use the menu through just button presses on the screen, and then Lumines uses it for like you can place the blocks and stuff. That's like the rhythm. Like block placing game. It's like Tetris with music attached. That uses it, and Stealthink. Stealthink was the game that I got a bit obsessed with. That's another puzzle platformer on the Vita, and on other things. It's on Steam and all the other consoles as well. But yeah, it's just got a really good catalog for people who either like puzzle platformers or B really like Japanese games because they all seem to come on it.
Yeah, I think that was almost what kind of not turned me off, but just nothing. There was nothing I got particularly excited about for it because I had a PSP and loved it and heard about the Vita.
Yeah,
and I was like, wow, that's awesome. It's a straight tech upgrade, and I'm really excited to see what they can do. But nothing like early on, nothing came out that I was particularly excited about or particularly impressed me.
Yeah, I don't think it has a lot of like actual releases that are that good, like that are like Vita only.
Well, I don't know if it was like
Um,
Vita only, but I was thinking that back when it was just the PSP, you would get lots of games that would release on all the consoles and PSP.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean, often there'd be slimmed down versions, or there'd be or the PSP version would be fairly different, but it would kind of be like a released alongside. But that was something that I never really saw with the Vita. Like you'd get
no,
like with the PSP, it'd be like, oh, you'd have releasing on 360, PlayStation 3, and the PSP.
Well, they tried it with Call of Duty Black Ops, and it was fucking atrocious. And I think that stopped anyone from trying again.
well, I
Black
think
Ops on the Vita?
actually,
Yes.
yeah, there is apparently.
I did not realise that.
I keep seeing it. They keep advertising it. Like, you should try this.
Oh.
Thank you.
You shouldn't. You really shouldn't.
Well, actually, and then lots of. Well, not all alongside, but loads of games had a spin-off onto Vita. Like there was an Assassin's Creed game on not on Vita on PSP. Like there were a couple. There was a Call of Duty. There was there were like 3 Medal of Honors.
They were often a bit crap though.
Well,
that was the issue, I think.
I mean, the Call of Duty was decent enough, and well, that's the thing. Like I played them at quite a young age, so you didn't and so like it was like one of my main accesses to video games. So you didn't feel so it still felt quite exciting. But I mean, all like the God of War games worked really well on PSP. And I mean, like the Assassin's Creed game was, I think it came out just after 1. Possibly.
Yeah, I think I know the one you mean. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was kind of a continuation of Altair's story, and it wasn't bad. And it was decent for a handheld game like it. It's right. But like
I
games
think
didn't really do that with the Vita.
Well, I think that they sort of have. They're just not been as many that have done like spin-off games. I think there's quite a lot. I'm having a flick through now that have had like simultaneous releases, but there's not been any major name ones. There've been a lot of, like I said before, Japanese games that have released on both. Like the where is it?
Well, it has you can play the PlayStation 4 games on the Vita, can't you? You can stream it to your Vita.
Can. My internet's not amazing, so it doesn't really work very well.
I can do the same thing with my Sony trademark, Xperia trademark phone. And yeah, it doesn't handle it very well, to be honest. It doesn't work that good.
It handles...
There's a lot of latency.
Yeah, it works better on the PS3. It brings stuff to it a bit better, but still not... It's not to the point where I'm like, I just play on that.
I'd play like a JRPG or something on it, but I wouldn't touch a shooter, and I would not touch a fighting game with a 10-foot barge pole.
No, I suppose like an RPG, I'd probably play on it. But yeah, like I was saying, they've had some games that have released on both. Like the Digimon game came out on both. They've had like the World of Final Fantasies come out on both. Like lots of the Lego games have come out on both. There's been a lot of, like you said though, like a lot of Japanese games have come out on both things, and then quite a lot of indie games have been ported to the Vita that are on everything anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I guess it was just a lot of the like AAA franchises just didn't feel like they were picking it up.
Yeah, there's just well, like I said, there's nothing like that's like Vita exclusive really that you're like, ooh, I should really get it to play that.
I never had a system seller really, did it?
It's the good things to play in it are either things from a different console, or they're on current gen consoles anyway.
Yeah, I feel like
maybe
I don't know. I've not formed a thought properly. Go ahead.
I'll say maybe what it needs is to run Skyrim, because I mean if that's enough to sell the Nintendo Switch, then just where like people go nuts about playing Skyrim on anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of the like I remember the Skyrim subreddit, people love showing that they can play Skyrim in the bath or on the toilet by doing the Steam share, or was it the in-home streaming? I'm like, look what I can play Skyrim on. I can play it on my tablet in bed upside down.
It's not worth it. Play an actually good game instead.
Yeah, people like are mad about Skyrim, and I don't really get it, but
It's a bit of a mystery to me as well. But and there we go. There's all our listeners gone. All of them were massive Skyrim fans. They've all
Yeah.
unsubscribed.
I'll defend it. I really enjoyed it at release. I still drop back into it very occasionally.
I mean, it was alright, but I don't think it. Like a lot of Bethesda games, it was alright, but didn't kind of merit the kind of enormous response it got.
yeah, I am totally on board with that. It's
I can understand. Like, yeah, like I think the main story was bleh. But
yeah, Bethesda games.
I think
always sort
like
of-
it's
Sorry,
a sort of niche that if you really enjoy, then you can always get loads out of it. But
yeah, Bethesda games always to me kind of feel like B movies, sort of. They have like a grand like idea, but then their execution's always a bit like, really, it's just not as good as it like seems like it could have been.
Bethesda games to me, right? They always remind me of. Do you know when you go to like a some kind of family event, and then there's like catering, but it's not proper catering. It's just like a big table filled with sandwiches.
Yeah,
And I mean, you can spend all day there eating sandwiches, and eventually you're gonna feel sick. But they're not incredible sandwiches. I feel like I lost that analogy at some point. But
I kind of got what you meant though. Yeah, I
it's
follow
like
your
sandwiches.
thought.
that kind of philosophy of just content over quality.
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I think that's the thing with Skyrim. A lot of the quality stuff is to be found outside the main campaign. Like the main story is unexciting. It's not
Quite shite, really, isn't it?
Yeah, whereas a lot of the like choice and freedom and role playing aspect comes from just what you choose to do outside of that.
I suppose it's just
That's like what I really enjoyed. Like whenever I go back in, I just go and do all the stuff that I still haven't done, and it's fun to just discover new things because there is so much.
all right. We've derailed this with Skyrim a bit, I think, because I said it was bad. But we were talking about the Vita, weren't we?
We
Yeah, we
were,
were saying
were.
if Vita ran Skyrim, maybe that would
Aye.
people would pick it
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for or there was anyway. Rest
yeah. I
in
don't-
peace.
I think it's
a
past
lot of
now,
a
unfortunately.
lot of opportunity for because it's quite it can do graphically intensive games. Like there was that Killzone game on it.
Yeah, that was a launch, I think. That was one.
Yeah.
That was like
Yeah.
meant to be one of their big flagship games.
Aye, like a statement of intent. Like this console can do, proper first person shooters, and just no one else bothered with it.
Well, it's got the Metal Gear collection and stuff on it,
But
and
that,
it's
yeah,
got
but that,
a bunch
that,
of other
that was,
stuff.
Those are all just the PSP HD remakes.
No, it's got 2 and 3 as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I knew it came with an HD version of Peace Walker.
Yeah, no, it's got 2 and 3 because it can do sort of like PS2 era graphics quite
Yeah.
easily. So I think there was opportunity to do stuff, but there's just not a lot. But I recommend
Yeah.
it to people who had a bunch of games on PSP that they still want to play, like long RPGs. It's got tons of those if you really want an RPG machine.
Yeah.
Vita is definitely your console. You've got Tactics Ogre for PSP. You've got
Tactics Ogre. Oh my
there's-
boy.
there's both Persona 3 for the PSP, and then there's the Persona 4 Golden, which is going to have you there for ages. There's Crisis Core if you were into that. I don't understand why you would be
Oofed.
bit shit. But
Let's not talk about Crisis Core.
if you were, it's on there. Like there's all the Final Fantasy games from I think at least 7 through 9.
You can play all the good ones, and then if you got brain damage, you can play the Shout spin-offs as well.
Yeah, that's true. There is 4, and there's 4 after years, so you can
don't.
really do yourself some damage if you want to play that.
Well, you mentioned that.
Why do they even
Xbox.
that game is like
I force quality.
4
And
is like one of my favorites, and then
There's
afterwards,
just that.
yeah, you're like, there's no need. I was happy with the conclusion.
What is the after years? Is that just when?
It's like-
Is it just them at a retirement home? And now I'm imagining the people that I saw in Final Fantasy 15, but just like in a retirement home, just lots of old people with like massive hair in black leather, but just like wrinkled in an armchair.
No. Final Fantasy IV was classy. It was like set in like a more medieval era with with like the classic sort of like Dark Knight and like Dragoon stuff, and the classic 4 crystals go and stop him getting shafted.
Yeah.
With some awesome music at the same time. But then after years, it was like set, 2 years after or something? And it was just nonsense. It was like they had an intern in for a day who came up with this mental idea, and then they made a game out of it. It was like...
Designed the whole thing?
Yeah, it was just like, this is not good. And it was long. It was like 25 hours or something. It was... Yeah. I avoid that. But there's Final Fantasy Distia, the fighting game, which is quality. That if you haven't played that, the sequel, which is basically the same game but expanded, is on there, and that is amazing. So, if you're a fan of Final Fantasy or JRPGs, then there's loads of stuff on the Vita.
Yeah, does the Vita, one thing that's really important to me, does the Vita have a port? Is there a PS Store version of Dragon Quest 8?
That is a good question. I don't think so, because I think that Nintendo own the rights to them now.
Because I know they did. I know there's an iOS version, and I know there's a planned 3DS version. But
yeah, I don't think there's Dragon Quest Builders, but no, that's it. I think.
So I mean, I have to admit, as an RPG fan, there are very good appeals for the Vita, just because I'm into RPGs and I'm quite heavily into like tactics RPGs as well. And so obviously the PSP was good, and the Vita's probably good as well. But then even now it's a bit price prohibitive, just because you have to find a good eBay deal. Like I'd never buy one new.
Oh yeah. No, they're like 180 quid or something still. And then you have to buy a memory stick if you want to play any of the old games.
And if you want to download stuff, you have to source like a... Because the games for it aren't small either, like, because they're quite modern and they have quite relatively good graphics. Like, they're not small games. Like you take the 3DS and you can just stick any old SD card in it. You can just grab like a 64 gig one for like £10.
Well, it's got all right internal storage in the first place. I don't understand why they've got basically none.
Yeah.
Like some games that you come in a box, you have to have a memory card, or they just won't work.
Yeah.
They say it requires a memory card that costs about 40 quid for like the smallest one.
Oh,
that seems like utter madness to me.
I remember with the PSP, you could get an adapter that just meant that an SD card could just slot in, so you didn't have to buy overpriced Sony proprietary memory.
Yeah,
but
really
just fucked it this time.
Oh, I didn't realise that. I had the reverse, where I could slot the tiny little cards into a main SD card adapter, but.
Well, I say, like, I mean, obviously you couldn't get like a proper sized SD card, but you could get like the tiny ones, the micro SDs, and you can just click that in and it works. I think it does trick it somehow into thinking it's a proper Sony one rather than a aftermarket one. But
yeah, the whole like having to have a specific Sony SD card is nonsense.
Atrocious.
I've got some exciting news that we could wrap up with, but
I pretty much stopped
news.
Well, it's a question from a listener.
Oh, holy shit!
Well, I mean,
is it a question from you that you?
No, it's not.
Okay.
From John Smith. But it was for you, because I was listening to you talk about Orwell.
Okay.
Question from Board Jarker here.
Yep, from this real person. Definitely real. Definitely not a made-up name. But it was for you. They're wondering if you'd seen Snowden and whether that like reframed Orwell at all for you. But I mean, you might not have seen Snowden, so perhaps.
No, I haven't seen it yet, unfortunately.
Podcast homework and answer.
Not in person. Not for a while.
Yeah.
He's not been out much recently.
Yes, I mean, I assume he means the film with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, I assume he does.
What?
He doesn't come around for coffee anymore, you see.
Yeah.
Don't see him down the pub anymore. He's not on my team for Time Commanders anymore.
I applied for Time Commanders. I was so bitter they did not choose me.
They chose these.
Yeah.
Fair, you weren't a wrestler, and you weren't some other one from London.
I'm not physically fit enough, and I'm not posh enough.
You didn't embody the class struggle enough for
Yeah,
Time
that's
Commanders,
true.
I'm afraid.
Yeah, you need like a stereotype that they could put you in. That's what you need.
There is no middle ground on Time Commanders.
No.
So you've not seen the film?
I haven't. No, I'm watching Person of Interest at the moment on Netflix, which is kind of semi-Orwellian. It's a American TV series where someone's invented a machine that basically spies on everyone and spits out numbers for terrorist attacks and potential violent attacks on civilians, and it's like them using that information to try and do good, which is like it. I feel like it tries to go like, so real estate is not so bad, like we save people, and it's like, yeah, but you're still spying on literally everything, and like it's a machine that does it, so you know, like the machine's impartial, and it's like, yeah, but still, yeah, it's interesting. I watched the first like 4 or 5 episodes, so I'm gonna see where that goes with the idea of it, but it's sort of. I think it's by J.J. Abrams, so it's running in that sort of, it's toying with the Orwellian ideas, while trying to still be like an American action TV series.
A bit of a Minority Report vibe there, like.
Yeah,
like,
sort of. Yeah.
You know, we have this thing that basically does things right, and it's kind of impartial, but isn't it just sort of fundamentally evil?
Yeah, but they haven't really addressed that. They've just sort of gone, we save people, it's fine, and like. It's going to end badly. It's going to end badly.
Yeah, there's going to be a twist, isn't there?
This is going to end badly. Yeah, at some point, even if this like 4 seasons in, it's going to end really badly.
It's going to start targeting people who say the After Years is good, and then they'll just say they deserve it, really, don't they?
Yeah, we can let them go first while we figure out what to do. God, what was wrong with that game? I normally like most Final Fantasy games. I'll play through them and still go, they had good points to it. That is probably the only Final Fantasy game I've ever gone, this is complete shite.
Even Dirge of Cerberus, though.
Yeah, even Dirge of Cerberus has like nice moments in it. Like it looks good in points. Like
yeah.
It is nonsense, but there are bits of it that you're like, this is at least partially enjoyable. Yeah, I still define Dirge of Cerberus.
I think we should take reader questions more often.
Yeah,
if we can get, I say reader, listener questions.
That was from Just Alex.
Just
a fake name,
sorry.
a fake username if I ever heard one. Definitely set up.
Right.
Thanks for that. And if you have a question, message us, preferably via the internet.
If you have a question.
We have yet to set up our messenger pigeon coop, but that's on the way.
True.
We don't take Morse code quite yet.
No.
The interpreter's still arguing with us about pay, so...
Yeah. If you send lots of like really random letters to Mike, though, I think he'd
love it.
that.
He'd love it.
Yeah. He likes getting letters. His
them...
little face when he sees a letter come through the post box, and it just lights up like a Christmas tree.
Especially if it's either written in blood or it's like stitched together with newspaper clippings.
Yeah, and especially when it references his family members being taken hostage.
Exactly.
He loves that.
I've got a reader question here. It says that my family has been taken and I need to cough up the money or they lose a toe.
Yeah, he loves that shit.
We should put out a call for responses on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah.
And see if anyone replies to it.
Canvas for death threats.
Yeah,
I was meaning reader questions, but close enough.
People that write things on the internet, that's just it's a dangerous line.
Yeah.
I think drum up some controversy.
Let them come naturally rather than...
No, you got to seek them out. You got to find the real loonies that way, and then you can highlight them, and then you'll get people feel sorry for you and follow you on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the real maverick new. It's a new thing the kids are doing, searching out the death threats rather than waiting for them to come to
death threats first.
Proactive
controversial
death
content
threats.
Second. You just kind of flip the order.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right, let's wrap up this episode of the podcast.
We're only barely over an hour this time. That's tight scheduling.
That is good. Yeah, I'm
So it's
proud
those
of us.
efficient segues.
Yeah, because our last one we did together was by far our longest one, where we completely lost it for.
Yeah.
Was that like the hour and a half one?
Yeah,
where we,
yeah.
Took a dive down.
That's where they got rid of me. I had to
Tangent
argue.
lane.
Had to argue for weeks for them to let me back on. They said it was banned.
Put him back in the box, and he wasn't allowed out
Exactly.
until he'd written it lines of "I'm sorry, I rambled for too long." Anyway,
Well,
thank you for listening to the GamerTime podcast. If you have found us without the website attached, you can find us at gamertime.co.uk or follow us on Twitter at GamerTimeUK. You can also send any questions to that address as well, please. Thank you. You can
Excellent.
follow me on Twitter at NevadaHM, and you guys are...
you can follow me at Gavin_GTUK.
I'm at _ scruffy looking capital S capital L.
Super. One last thing. If you guys could subscribe and leave a review on the various review leaving places, that would be brilliant, because we don't have one yet, so do it.
Yep, and we can only fake so many before we're caught.
Exactly. And 5 stars only. We don't need any of your anything else.
Exactly.
If you can leave anything less than 5,
Don't even think about it.
yeah, just don't bother. But anyway, thank you for listening. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.